Hi everyone, KL Kettle here. Welcome to episode 16 of the Book Chain Project, Series 1. Don't forget, if you'd like to apply to be part of Series 2 in next year, that's 2022, then you can follow the link below at www.klkettle.com. This week, Bryony Pierce is talking to James Nicol, both who write spooky stories, but Bryony writes more YA, and James is well known for his Apprentice Witch Series. Here are some of the books. They came out quite a few years ago now, and actually he mentions that when they recorded this, it was the 5th year anniversary of book 1 being published, and he's working on his new books at the moment. James is a great pioneer for literature with kids and does fantastic talks for children, and I really hope that you enjoy his interview today. I'll see you on the other side.
Hello everybody, sorry, technical problems. Welcome to this week's Book Chain Project, where I will be interviewing author Marisa Noelle about her series, which begins with the Unadjusteds. That's a real mouthful to say. Oh, and she's here, fantastic. So I'm going to invite Marisa to come and join us. I can wave at her. Oh, there we go. Now she can join us. We were just talking about how whenever anybody does an Instagram live session, the first couple of minutes, I just utter gobbledygook. Here she is!
Yay! Here I
As
am.
I'm saying utter gobbledygook, I was not talking about your book. I was just saying about how we were talking about people starting Instagram live sessions and just going, oh, this isn't working, and so waving at me.
Brilliant.
So hello, welcome.
Hello.
My hair was going to be like 3 times bigger than it was yesterday.
What's that? Sorry,
Is it warm enough for you?
Yeah. There we go. Right.
Is it warm enough for you?
No, I need it much hotter than this. I think we should all just move to the desert, quite frankly, because we might as well. I've got my little mini fan sitting on my desk, and I've had my desk fan all day, and I've had my wet towel around my neck. Didn't think it would look very cool on the interview though, so I took it off. Yeah, it's not fun.
I think it sounds like a good idea. I may go and get a wet towel myself.
Yeah.
I've been accused of being a wet blanket a few times in my life, but never a wet towel. So welcome, Marisa. We are doing our book chain interview this evening. So I have some, I'd like to say deep and penetrating questions, but I'm not sure whether they really are. And we're going to be talking about your fantastic book, Unadjusteds, which is the first in the series, isn't it? So I've only managed to read the first one because I'm such a slow reader. But there are 2 other books that follow it, and they're both out already, aren't they?
They are. The whole trilogy is out and ready for all those readers who want to get stuck in. So yeah.
Just fantastic. So we're going to, obviously I'm going to be asking questions, and I think the idea is that we try not to give away any spoilers.
Okay.
For those people that want to obviously pick up the books and join the adventure, which of course you do want to do this because it's very good. So we'll try not to give any spoilers, but it's impossible really, isn't it, when you're talking about a series of books to not give away. So we'll try and give you a warning perhaps, and if you don't want a spoiler you can pop your fingers in your ears or something. So let's start by you telling us a little bit about yourself and also about your book series.
Okay, so I have been writing for probably over 15 years now. It wasn't something I thought I was going to do. I kind of fell into it and realised that I loved it, and the more I wrote, the more I loved it and never wanted to do anything else. So it was a lovely way to kind of discover a passion. And really I should have known, because I'd always been a bookworm. It should have occurred to me that writing would be fun as well, although a lot more hard work than reading a book. And then the trilogy came about. It was actually one of the first books I ever wrote. And when I didn't know it was going to be a trilogy until I was getting to the end of the first book, and I thought, actually, this story has got a lot more to go. There's things that need to happen. And I wrote the whole trilogy from front to back, and loved being in the world for that much space. Like, I mean, you write a series, so you know what it's like when you're with the same character, And you feel like you get to know them so much more than a standalone book or something like that. And I loved being in Silver's world, so I didn't stop. So the series is about a world where genetic enhancements have become normal. So it's like the all species genome project has been completed, and you can harness speed from a cheetah, or invisibility from a cephalopod, or wings from a parrot. And 80% of the population now have these abilities, but the 20% left, the unadjusteds, don't. And when they are then forced to take these pills which give them these abilities, they realize they've got to make a stand. So it's about our main character, how she deals with that when she's being forced to do something she doesn't want to do, and what that might mean for our future, because it could happen.
Absolutely.
Maybe.
And I was really intrigued by what you just said there about how many people have taken the nanites in the series, and I just suddenly wondered whether you would take a nanite if you had the opportunity.
I probably would. I should probably say I wouldn't and be like Silver, but how cool would it be to fly, or to be like as smart as Einstein, or I think I would find that really tempting. So I might take one.
But taking the nanite comes with a huge risk, doesn't it, as well?
It does.
And as the book opens, we get this very kind of my heart was sort of like racing at that first scene where somebody's taken a nanite and it's had like the complete opposite effect to giving them sort of any sort of enhancement, hasn't it? Do you want to tell everybody? It's not really a spoiler, is it? Because it's the first thing.
It's the opening scene, and you can read the first chapter on my website, and it's got everything. But basically, like any medication or vaccination, that people have experienced recently, there are side effects, and there are fatal side effects in some cases, and it's a minority, but it does happen, and it's more likely to happen the more of these pills that you actually take. So the opening scene of the book starts with our main character on her way to school, and outside the school, somebody has taken one of these pills and unfortunately dies because his body doesn't take to the change. And the more extreme the change, the more likely that there might be a negative side effect. So one of the most popular changes is what they call the bulk nanite. And it basically makes you grow to 8 feet tall. Your skin is armored. You are fire retardant. You have like super strength and reflexes and speed. So it's really popular for like the army, soldiers, police, and football players. It's dominating the football fields at the moment, as an American football. And other sports, but it's a drastic change, and it's one that does have more side effects than some of the others. So so you've got to be prepared if you're going to take one of these pills, I think.
And Silver is the main character, and she has chosen not to take the nanite up till this point. So there's you've developed this really rich kind of I'm never quite sure how you put it, like prehistory, isn't it? It's prehistory to what we witness in the book. So Silver has chosen not to take the nanite up to that point. Do you want to just talk a bit more about why that is?
There's a lot of reasons that Silver feels. One of her primary reasons is that she's got two best friends. One is Matt, and one was a girl called Diana, whose parents were kind of social ladder climbers, and they wanted their daughter to do really well. And Diana was a swimmer, and they pushed nanites on her so that she could be better, because if you were competing in a sports field, unless you had one of these abilities, you weren't going to win anything. So Diana died on her 16th birthday by taking her 5th nanite pill, and her body didn't take to the change. And Silver was there, and she witnessed this whole thing. And she's like, I'm never going to do this to myself, and I'm not going to do this to honor Diana's memory. And I can see what the bad effects of that are. But also, her parents are the scientists that actually created these nanites. And when they were created, it was for altruistic reasons. Her parents are good people. And it was originally made for soldiers who had had their limbs blown off in wars. So if they stepped on a bomb, you would have a regeneration nanite that could regenerate your limbs. and that was curing cancer, AIDS, you know, all those kinds of horrible illnesses, which is how it all started. And then obviously, you know, greed and money and power contorts these things. So Silver's father continues to make these nanites under the duress of the president, but her mother has been put in prison for treason for refusing to do it anymore. And as much as her father would like to stop, you know, he can't be in jail as well and leave Silver on her own. So he is in a difficult situation. So she knows that the intention was good, but it's become, you know, such an awful thing for their world to contend with. And she doesn't want anything to do with it. So she's very, very anti-nanite. Yeah.
Yeah. And also anti the adjusted people as well.
Yeah.
She's got a real kind of, you know,
yeah,
I want to do with you sort of attitude, hasn't she?
Yeah, she's got her own prejudices, and she thinks anyone that takes a nanite, whether it's a nanite for even having you know, a permanent tan versus wings or speed, she just thinks it's pointless, and she looks down on them, and she thinks they're just freaks, basically. And why would you do that to your body, and you're not human anymore? So she definitely has her own prejudice to, you know, when we go into the start of the book about how she feels about these people. Yeah.
And then obviously, as we often experience when we're writing characters, her world is turned very much upside down, isn't it? And her sort of values change and shift as the story progresses, which is lovely to see that kind of transformation to her as the story goes on. Just going back to what you were saying about you didn't set out to plan to write a series initially, and it was only when you got to the end of the first book that you kind of wanted to explore it more. That was very similar to me when I wrote The Apprentice Witch. Did you know then, did you have a clear idea of what you wanted to have happen in the second and third books, or have you, you know, did you know it would be 3 books? Did you think it might be more? I'm just interested in kind of...
Yes, I knew when I got to the end of the first book, which is actually very different to the book that you've got in your hands now. I saw a very clear path for 2 more books. It was a trilogy, and you know, trilogies are the dumb thing, really, aren't they? You don't often have more than that. And duologies, although they're becoming more popular, but I saw, you know, that a bigger bad had to come in book 2, and then Silver would have her own demons to fight in book 3, and that's kind of what I wanted to see happen. So I saw the rest of that, and this was kind of in my pantsing days, to be honest, where I would just have the general idea and just go for it. It was quite clear in my mind at that point what Silver's arc was going to be throughout the trilogy, what she was going to get out of the subsequent books. So sometimes I think I'd like to go and write a prequel, you know, almost from her parents' perspective of when the nanites first came out. Maybe I will. I don't know. I you know, it's an idea. Maybe we'll see.
I think there's a lot there, isn't there? Like I was saying, prehistory, it would be lovely to see that kind of shift as people first start to take the nanites and things. I think I think you should go and do that right now.
Yeah.
We'll stop this. You can go and write that story. What's your favourite part of the writing process, Marisa? What do you love doing?
I like writing first drafts. That's my favorite part. I just love the thrill of a new project and seeing it all come to life. And normally I've been thinking for a couple of months, and then plotting for a month, and then when I finally get down to write, and you kind of breathe life into those characters, into those stories that have, you know, up until then been on post-its or spreadsheets or, you know, in my head, and I see it all come to life, and that's when I get to know my characters, that first draft. You know, as much as I think I've got them, you know, they change when you start writing them, and that's when I kind of really get to know them, and we become a team together, and I'm like, okay, well, actually, that's not what we're going to do. We're going off in this direction or that direction, and that is my favorite part, because editing I find hard because I second guess myself. But that freedom to just create and not have any rules and just to follow your intuition is absolutely my favorite part. It's just to grow the book and see where it goes. Yeah,
that's really interesting, because I'm like I'm the reverse, whereas I hate
Are
doing that
you?
first draft because I keep second guessing myself and trying to edit
Yeah.
myself as I'm doing it. So yeah, I always love it when the edits land, and that always feels much more creative for me. So you've answered my other question, which is the hardest bit. So I'm guessing that's the editing.
Well, I think there's a difference between editing yourself and getting edits from your editor, because if you get edits from your editor, then you're like, okay, I know I've got to do that. That's fine. But when you're trying to make it as good as possible before sending it on, that's when I think, oh, should I change that or make that character? I'm like, that's when I want someone else's input, because like I'm too afraid to make big changes without someone telling me it's okay, you know. Yeah, that's the scary part.
Just need to, like, I don't know, perhaps we could develop an editor app that you can just press it and it will give you like an encouraging word, or like, don't do that.
Absolutely.
That'd be good. So what was the initial seed of inspiration for the series, Marisa? What really was it? A character? Was it this idea about the pills? How did it all begin?
Well, I think for the book itself, it was definitely about Silver, because I wanted to write a character that was actually not very mentally strong. You know, people had been reading Hunger Games, and actually the Hunger Games was kind of out about the time I was writing it. And, you know, you had all these really kick-ass heroines with fantastic abilities. And I thought, well, what if you didn't have that? What if you just took a normal person and made them have to deal with this? Which is why I gave her anxiety. And obviously that's something I can talk to, because I've had anxiety in my life. And I felt that that needed to be given a voice to for young adults, as well as that could make an interesting nuance to the character and how she deals with the pressure on her shoulders. Now, my editor did say she needed some kind of skill, which is when the karate came in, but that kind of complimented her, I think, because she, you know, she's a bit angry inside about the situation that she's found herself in. So it was useful to get her anger out in a martial arts like that. But the idea itself, I think, came from a few different things. I did biology at A-level, and I was always fascinated by the genetic components. And I had once aspired to be like a behavioural profiler, like Jodie Foster from Silence of the Lambs type thing. That was kind of where I wanted to go. And I found the idea, you know, the mind of serial killers and stuff like that fascinating, and how it could be related to genetics, and how much was genetics and how much was environmental, and what kind of pressure factors. And about the same time, Dolly the sheep was cloned. So I don't know if anyone knows Dolly the sheep, but it was the first animal to be successfully cloned back in the 90s. And I was fascinated by this, because I kind of thought, well, is it the same sheep? I mean, it's not the same sheep, but is it got a consciousness like, you know, the sheep it was cloned from? What, you know, I just kind of thought, what about the soul? Do animals have souls? And so I had all these really big questions. And I thought, and then, you know, a few years on from that, we start hearing about designer babies, that, okay, in vitro, you could perhaps eradicate spina bifida or Down syndrome or things like that. But also, what about choosing blonde hair and blue eyes? And suddenly we've got Hitler's Aryan race all over again. And I thought, well, what would a world look like when we had, you know, power and greed and the ability to actually do what we wanted to do to our bodies? And those kind of things came together to give me the idea of this world of the Unadjusteds. And thankfully, my brother is a genetic scientist, so I relied on him quite heavily for information, which is great. So if any of the science is wrong, you can just blame him.
That's really handy, isn't it, having that kind of
really,
because I was interested in the sort of research that you would have to do, because obviously I write fantasy, so I just make it all up. But you know, there's real, you know, I remember Dolly the sheep. I remember Dolly the sheep. That sounds like we were close personal friends. I remember that happening, and it just being like this kind of, oh my goodness, you know, it's like just world changing, isn't it, really? And like you, all of those questions that bubble around in your head about, well, how is she connected to the original Dolly the sheep? And so when you were doing your research, did you unearth any kind of like really juicy things that you thought, you really wanted to use but didn't make it into the book?
Do you want? No, I think I actually got everything that I wanted to in there. And I think one of the little snags my editor and I had on was about the invisibility element, because basically the two animals in nature that can blend themselves into the background are the cephalopod and the chameleon.
Yeah.
So harnessing DNA from those two creatures specifically was what created. So it's not an invisibility per se, but it's the ability to blend into your background. Yeah. But if you're wearing clothes and you've got a backpack on, how does that work? So we came up with the idea that you would have bio something or other clothing, not entirely sure of the details, that would work with the nanite pill and adjust to, you know, what you'd taken, and that seemed to work. That seemed to suspend the disbelief. So although that's probably, you know, a slight stretch in the terms of the science, it was plausible at the same time. And I just think there's probably things, actually, I think it's the other way, James. I think there's probably things I haven't thought of that I could have done and gone bigger or further, or maybe even a little bit more fantastic. And I remember sitting thinking, well, what kind of abilities would there be, and what would be popular, and what am I not thinking of? And feeling like there was some really thing that would be so popular that I just wasn't smart enough to come up with. So I thought, whatever, I'll just go with it. And we got where we got. So yeah.
So the book, interestingly, well, I found it really interesting, the fact that the book is set in America, and Silver's Silver's American, and it starts off in an American high school, and I was like, oh, this is interesting, because we didn't know each other until this, did we? So I was thinking, well, I thought I was kind of fairly sure Marisa was lived in England and was English. So do you just want to talk about why you decided to set the story in America? Because I found that really interesting.
Sure. So I am actually American, believe it or not. I think some people might know that. But I was born here, and then I spent time in the States when I was a kid, like 9, for a few years when I was 9. And actually that's when I really fell in love with reading, and I discovered, and I really went down the horror and supernatural route. So I was all about point horror and Christopher Pike and Dean Koontz and Stephen King. And, you know, we didn't really have huge YA sections at that time. So I was straight into the grown-up stuff. And also Dean Koontz, who remains probably my favorite author today, lived in the next town in California where I was. And that gave me this connection to his writing and his content and all that kind of stuff. So the books that I read were very American. And I think because that's where I was at an emotional point in my life, or I had found books, that's where I felt comfortable setting things. And I think some stories work better in America and some here. I mean, I do have books that are set in Britain. And I do think about it when I come to a new book. I think, what's the best place for this book? Because I feel at home in either place. And Google Earth is a good friend as well, if you need to see what a street looks like or something. But yeah, I just think, you know, America's such a big country, and something like a dystopian world has a much bigger effect on the entire world when it's set in a country like that than in our tiny little island. So I just naturally gravitated towards it being American, and there we go. Yeah.
I just felt, you know, to me it felt right that it was set in America. Certainly I loved the way you sort of played around with the kind of the high school stereotypes and linked them to their kind of adjusted statuses. So like all the kind of sporty jocks were bulks, and all the kind of, I could see all the mean girls flying around above the lockers and things. I thought that was really a really lovely touch, and I definitely got that kind of Dean Koontzzy vibe from it, because it's kind of it's I think, you know, you could just say, oh, it's like a YA dystopian story, which it is, but then it's got this kind of Koontz quirkiness to it, which I really
I think I think he's like the master of tension and suspense, and I'm hoping that I've picked up a few things from reading, I think most of his books. I think I've read most of his books, and what amazes me about his writing is that you can get halfway through the book nothing has actually happened, but you were on the edge of your seat
Yeah.
with suspense. And I think the more you read, obviously, the more skills you absorb almost instinctually. I hope anyway. But thank you for saying that. I appreciate it.
Pleasure,
Yeah.
real pleasure. So you were talking before about Silva's kind of personality and the fact that she obviously kind of suffers with poor mental health at times, but also you did have to make her quite capable because of this adventure that she goes on. So, I mean, obviously, I've only read the first book so far, and without giving away too many spoilers, if you possibly can, I was just intrigued about how her character continues to develop through the second and third books, and how difficult you found that process as well, I guess.
Yeah, I think, I mean, as you expect, well, and what I wanted to do with the trilogy, and what I have found that's been lacking in some of the dystopian trilogies I've read, is things like PTSD. I was thinking, you can't go through something like the Hunger Games. Actually, to be fair, the Hunger Games did have PTSD, so I will retract that statement. But you can't go through something like that and not have side effects and not have that an impact in your life. So when book 2 rolls around and Silva, and they have to go out on another mission, and there's another big bad that they've got to take down, you know, it's all, her anxiety is all actually worse because they lost people on the first mission. She knows she's going to lose other people. She doesn't know who it's going to be. And that actually affects some of her personal talents, shall we say. And sometimes she can cope, sometimes she can't cope, and sometimes she is reliable, and sometimes she's not. And that is a real inner conflict that also affects the external conflict of what's happening and the obstacles that they face as a team. And then in book 3, she is so sick of, you know, it's even worse. She's having nightmares and she doesn't sleep. She's so sick of it that she makes drastic decisions, but that drastic decision leads to consequences that almost change her personality. And then she has something else that she's got to deal with, which sounds so vague now, but I'm trying to say this without spoiling.
No, I think you know, you can see that what those potential things are going to be. I think that's really good. So I think we've only got about 5 minutes. I'm just going to check the time. Yeah, we've only got 4 minutes. It's whizzed by.
Wow.
I'm trying to think which of these questions I most want to ask you. Oh, I know. So do you believe in writer's block? And what do you do if you suffer from it?
Okay. No. I find, I mean, I don't know. I think there are times I have a plot problem. Which I guess is what people might equate to writer's block. I know some people just struggle to get started. I've never struggled to get started because that first draft is my favorite thing. I'm like, oh, I can't wait to get there. But if I hit a plot hole, for instance, and I don't know what to do, I take that to my writing group or my kids. Actually, they're really good at brainstorming with me. And my writing group, there's 10 of us, and we talk it out. We brainstorm together until I'm happy enough with the solution. And, you know, 10 brains are so much better than one. And inevitably, I know they're going to come up with something better than I could have done on my own. And then I'm off again. And they haven't yet failed to deliver in helping me. So that's what I do.
Fantastic. I think it's so important for, you know, anybody writing, whether you're just starting out, whether you've been writing for a while, have that sort of network of people around to help, you know, outside of like your editor and people like that you can just kind of message or call on and say help. So that's really good. Fab, thank you.
Absolutely.
If you could go back and tell your younger writing self anything, what would it be?
Start earlier. And do you know, so when I was at school, I was kind of like maths and science kid, and although I loved writing or reading, I didn't think that writing was something I could do. And my mom, who was really good at creative writing and, you know, big loud American, she always used to say to me, you've got loads of ideas, but you don't know how to get them down on paper. And I kind of think I took that to heart, probably more than I should have, and thought, well, obviously I don't know how to write a story. without my mother's help. I mean, she helped me with my when you apply to university in the States, you have to write this whole personal statement, essay, creative writing, possibly fiction thing that's supposed to be about your life. And I mean, she helped me write those because I had no idea what I was doing. So I think I kind of dismissed the whole idea of the fact that maybe I could write. And it wasn't until I got into it and realized, actually, I can do this, that I started to pursue it. So I would say, just don't let anyone tell you no. Go for your passion and just don't stop until it happens, is what I would tell myself.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
So we've just come up, I think, to we've just got 1 minute, so I'm going to ask one more question.
One more question.
Which is, what do you love most about being a published author?
I think my favourite thing is when, when you see a 5-star review and you can feel the enthusiasm from that reader and how much they loved it and how much you have touched them. I remember reading stories and wanting to climb inside the book or be the main character's best friend and never wanting it to end. You know how sad you are when you get to the end of a series, and the ability to be able to create that for someone else is the most rewarding thing I've ever experienced. And when I see that reflected in the enthusiasm of a review, or if I'm at a school visit and they come and tell me that my book is their favorite book, I almost don't know what to do with it, you know, and I feel part of me is embarrassed, part of me is so proud, you know, and I just think that's what it's all about. It's just, you know, part of it's validation as well, but just knowing that you have almost changed someone's life with your words is just the most special thing, I think, for me. Yeah.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you. Lovely answer. So I think that does bring us up to 8 o'clock. Perfect. Look at us. We're just brilliant. So thank you so much, Marisa. Do look out for Marisa's book series. The first one is the Unadjusteds, and you can get them online from the usual places. But have you got a specific place where you'd like people to go for the books, Marisa?
No, whatever's easiest for you is fine by me.
Lovely, super. And you're going to be back for the Book Chain Project next Wednesday, aren't you? So there's not the 2-week gap which we discovered.
It's 1 week. Yes.
Who are you going to be interviewing?
I've got the lovely Georgia Bowers, and I am reading her book at the moment. It's called Mark of the Wicked, and it is a magical YA, witchy, and it is fantastic, and it's fresh and it's original and it's got some amazing twists, and I cannot wait to discuss it. It's going to be so much fun.
So do give Marisa a follow so that you will know when she goes live next Wednesday, and you can join the Book Chain Project then. Marisa and I are going to go into our green room now and do our little behind the scenes extras, like bloopers and jokes. I'm not quite sure. I'll have to check the instructions. But thank you everybody for coming along, and thank you, Marisa, for being a fantastic guest. And
thank you so much.
Bye.
Thank you. Oh, okay.
Thank you, Zoom.
Continue.
I guess it's being recorded.
There we go.
So, Marisa, how did you enjoy that interview? Are you feeling frazzled?
Not at all, apart from the heat. You know, I'm going to have to go have a cold shower, I think, after. I thought that was fantastic. It's so lovely to talk to other authors. I don't have authors in my real life. My husband doesn't even read. So to have chats with other authors who totally get what you're talking about and all our terminology is really special to me, actually. I really enjoy it.
Even as supportive as like friends and family are when we embark on this crazy journey, they don't really understand the full ins and outs of it, do they? So they'll like say, oh, so have you written another book yet? And it's like,
exactly.
I'm trying.
Well, when I first started, I think when I first got my first publishing deal, and my husband was like, well, you know, do we set up a limited company, and what's the most tax efficient way to deal with this? And, you know, I was kind of looking at him like that. You do know that most authors don't get paid more than 10k a year. You do understand that, you know, we're talking like personal expenses here, you know. So eventually he's realized that maybe we don't need to do that.
Was he like thinking, hey, maybe I can retire early?
yeah, not.
My partner's constantly on the like, oh, I could just be your personal assistant, and it's like, yes, but you would actually have to do work then as my personal assistant.
Exactly.
And
And I would have my whip out. Yeah.
I'd be very demanding if I had a personal assistant.
Yeah.
Probably just as
T-boy.
don't do that sort of thing. So we've got some quick fire questions to do. So I think the key to this is not to think too long and hard about the answer.
Okay, just
yeah, you're not being marked.
Okay.
Probably, I bet Kitty set this up. It's probably some sort of deep psychological profiling, isn't it?
Oh, maybe.
Going on us.
Well, as long as I get results, I'm all good with that. Or maybe I don't want results.
I'd rather not know what delusions I'm living with. So, as a writer, because that's what you are, what would you choose as your mascot / avatar / spirit animal?
Dolphin.
Oh, see, I would do an impression of a dolphin, but it would just sound like I was choking to death.
Spirit animal, I think. Dolphin, because I love the water. I swim most days. I don't feel right unless I'm near the ocean. A lot of my books are based on the ocean. I have a whole series that's about mermaids that's in the ocean. And I just, dolphin. I love a dolphin. And they're smart.
Yeah.
They're smart, you know?
But not so good at typing.
Yeah. Well, maybe I could have a land animal as well.
Yeah, you should have two when you're not in
then
the
I think, well, my favorite animal has always been a tiger.
Ooh.
But in reality, I think my spirit would probably be more like a cocker spaniel. Roll over and pet my belly,
Feed me and let me go to sleep. I used to be a bookseller, and I vividly remember this lady. She was a regular customer, and she loved all of the kind of like spiritualist and mind body spirit type books, and she was always buying like tarot cards and stuff like this. And she came in, and we'd had to order this book from I think it'd come from America, so it'd taken weeks for it to arrive, and it was all about contacting your shaman spirit animal and stuff. And she was like, came running in to get it as soon as we rang her to tell her it had arrived, and sort of ran straight out of the shop. And the next time we saw her, we're like, oh, how did you get on with your spirit animal book? And she's like, oh, do not ask me about that wretched book. And we're like, why? She's like, well, there was like this whole like 70 odd pages of questions and things, and then you like tot up the score to see what your actual spirit animal is. She said, and mine was a bloody squirrel. It's like, well, it could have been worse. It could have been like a cat or something.
Squirrels are right. I thought you were going to say like a snake or something, because my like Chinese year is year of the snake, and I'm not sure how I feel about that. Yeah,
I'm a snake as well.
Don't know how I feel about that. My son gets the dragon.
Oh, well, we're just like little dragons without legs.
But I must say, when you talk about spirit animals, my mind always goes to the Philip Pullman trilogy. I'm assuming you've read.
Yeah.
Because when I read that, and I thought, that is the best thing ever. You are never alone. You have always got something with you. And the fact that it changes according to your mood and your temper, and I just thought, well, at least until it's fixed. I just thought, that's like one of the ideas I wished I'd had, Oh, hail the great Pullman,
Should just do some kowtowing.
Yeah, do something like that.
Next question. If you could only eat one meal and drink one drink for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Prosecco. That's obvious for a drink. Well, it's a toss-up between Prosecco and tea. When we do this with the kids, we give them three options. One is hard. One is really hard.
What, you offer your children one last meal? What's going on? Like, this is the last meal I'm taking you, like, on your own, kids.
You're on a desert island. You can have 3 foods, 3 drinks, 3 weapons, 3 whatever. We're a little bit more generous. Ice cream.
Oh,
I'm going ice cream. Yeah.
See, if we were stuck on a desert island together, we'd be all right, because I said apple crumble.
There you go.
We could share. We could have apple crumble and ice cream. And
Prosecco and ice cream. I like it. Civilized and
I
don't know what ice cream represents, but
So what, I'm intrigued about the whole weapons thing now. What 3 weapons would you have on your desert island?
Well, when you think about the fact, or it's like 3 tools or something, because when you think about the fact that you might have to build yourself a shelter or hunt or grow some crops, what are you going to have? So probably a knife, probably an axe, and then they get into like an AK with unlimited bullets and things like that. I'm like, no, we're not having that. It's got to be something that you can learn to use and then actually one of the popular things is rope. But you can use palm frond vines, but a little bit of rope is good to have. But definitely a knife. You definitely need a good.
Yeah.
It's just scaring me a little bit how much I know about this now. So
are you a prepper? Have you got your bug out bag ready just in case it all goes belly up?
I could be. Just before COVID, a friend of mine released a book, and it was all about a electromagnetic pulse that had put the world into dystopian society. And the character in the book, was a survivalist, and she had bought the house behind her with money that the family didn't know about and stocked it with flour and grains and all sorts of things. So she was prepared. I was like, I could do that. I could, if I was pushed.
There's
environmental factors, maybe.
There was a really funny program on Radio 4 that I heard recently it's kind of a comedy drama, but it's meant to be these 2 women doing a podcast for people who want to be preppers, and it's just really it's just really hilarious. And they're talking about trying to buy compost from the local garden centre in the middle of the lockdown and stuff, and it was really hilarious. Next question then, Marvel or DC?
Marvel. No question. Marvel. I just think that Marvel is more fun and DC is quite dark, which is fine. Because I did enjoy the Batmans and stuff in my day, but I do like a bit of Spider-Man. He's my favorite Marvel
very dark
hero.
Batman's
very dark. Especially like the series Gotham. I don't know if you've seen that. I think it was on Netflix. No, somewhere. And it was like an 18. It was quite dark. We really went into, and then obviously the Joker movies, they're really, they're not action movies, are they? They're more emotional. Whereas Marvel is more wham bam,
kapow,
Thor, hammer,
bash,
kapow, blast,
So then, question number 4: Bugs Bunny or Mickey Mouse?
I think Mickey Mouse. Well, Mickey Mouse has got an annoying voice, and Bugs Bunny, he chews carrots obsessively. So, can I say neither?
Yeah, sure.
I'm going to say. Do you know what? If I want a cartoon, I'm going to go South Park.
You will respect my authority. And then you get 3 this time. What 3 books would you take with you to a desert island, or / give to an alien? Presumably the alien.
I think that's a very different question. Do you know?
Yeah.
Because when you bring books to a desert island, you are doing it for yourself because of what you've enjoyed. So I would go, I think the Hunger Games trilogy, and I think The Watchers by Dean Koontz, my favorite Dean Koontz book, and there's so many. This is not funny.
Got my favorite Dean Koontz book right here.
Oh, have you?
I don't know if you'll know it.
Oh yeah, Odd.
Yeah.
Which number is that in the Odd series?
Oh, I don't know. It's like an illustrated. I remember it from being at high school. About these toys, and just loving the fab illustrations inside.
Oh, that's not what I thought it was. Right, wow, that's phenomenal.
Yeah, really bizarre.
Yeah, really bizarre. I've not come across that before. Wow. Yeah. What about the collected works of Dean Koontz?
Oh no, I don't have that.
No, I mean,
you're taking that, aren't you? You're taking.
Could I take, the collected works, which would be like 50 books, with me to my island?
Yeah, I mean, you'd obviously take like an e-reader with you, wouldn't you, if you were planning ahead?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, yeah,
But
what
I
about
think
giving
if
to an
you're going to
alien?
give,
What books would you give to an
well,
alien?
this is the thing. I mean, I question whether you might give an alien the Bible, because
Oh,
are you teaching them
I think it
about
would come off
human
very well if
race,
we gave them the Bible.
or are you teaching them something that's up for debate? You know, that could, you know, it's an interesting part of human history, though.
Mm.
So I don't know. What would I give an alien? Maybe a manual of something, like how to use the internet. What would I give? Well, I think you would give an alien maybe some Shakespeare, maybe something modern, and maybe something like Frankenstein.
Oh, I just suddenly thought I'd give them a joke book.
That's a good idea. Yes, yes.
Can you imagine it'd be like giving a kid a joke book and they just keep reading the jokes to you the whole time.
Yes, I've got experience of that. I do. Yeah, I do not, because I don't write funny. I did my head did not go there, but I think that's a really good idea. Yeah.
That's all of our questions done. Well, thank you so much for joining me in the green room that's the same as the other room. And this is actually a green room we're in here.
Yes,
my room
clearly.
is green a little bit. I didn't paint it this colour. I can't wait to paint it a different colour, actually.
Oh, okay. It just looks very neutral from here.
It's not too bad. It's kind of, if you stare at it a long time, you suddenly go, oh, it's green. It's green. It's green.
It is green. Yeah.
Anyway, it's a lovely writing room, so I shouldn't complain really that it's green.
Yes, it is. And you've got some lovely bookshelves. Have you got yourself onto TikTok yet?
No, I'm a bit scared of TikTok. A friend keeps sending me like TikTok things, and they're quite funny, but I just think, do I really need another thing to distract me?
Well, it's not TikTok, it's BookTok. And but there's a whole thing about bookshelves, and people take you on bookshelf tours and look at the pretties. It's quite you can lose quite a lot of time there. So don't go on TikTok.
No, I was doing a little virtual visit with a school this morning, and I was telling them that we've got books in every room in the house except the bathroom, because they get damp. But none of them, they're not in, despite being a librarian, none of my books are in any sort of order, other than that the books in the bookcase here, which you can't see, are all the books that are kind of inspirational to me, authors that I really admire and stuff. And then but they're all kind of higgledy-piggledy, because I just,
so if you're looking for a book,
I know where they are.
Do you know where it is?
I know which room they're in. But I don't necessarily always know exactly what shelf they're on. But I just love that kind of looking through the shelves and then going, oh, I haven't looked at that for a while.
Yeah.
It'd be crazy.
No, you should definitely do. I want to see a bookshelf tour on TikTok of you, because I think you would make BookTok go up in arms and saying, where's your order? They had rainbow groupings and
people I used to work with were disgusted when we had, in our last house, we had our books organized by colour. We had like rainbow shelves, and people were just like, how can you do that? Which is a bit tricky with my own books, because the spines are different colours to the cover.
I can't do rainbow. I think it looks beautiful, but I cannot separate an author. I can't do that.
But also you always end up with more of one colour. We ended up with a lot of blue spined and black spined books, and not enough yellow, I think it was. But
probably not many yellow, actually, are there?
We need more yellow books.
Oh, no, I don't have many yellow. I'm just looking at mine. I have a lot of black. That says a lot about me.
Oh, this has been so much fun. I could talk for the rest of my life.
Definitely.
I
think I need to go have that cold shower now.
Super. Thank you, Marisa. I'm going to stop recording now.
Cool. Yeah.
Hi, I hope you really enjoyed that episode of the Book Chain Project. Next week, James talks to Marisa Noelle, who also writes spooky stories for YA, but is more indie published, and she has some fantastic experience to share with everybody there. I'll see you next week. Bye. 1, 2, 3.